Men vi är antirasister, inte anklagas för att vara antisemiter, ja. Tumi, Eltipo, Este, Tonto, Noiza, Gatas Parlament.
Hay que hacer no solamente hablar, boicot Israel.
Everybody told us knowledge was the fifth element. Truth behind the lies is what the music represents. So how the fuck you gonna have a peace settlement when people want a piece of your land to build settlements? There's all different kind of terrorism you could perpetrate. Every dead body causes karma to circulate. It's suicide bombing buildings full of civilians, or cutting off water to cities full of children. You can't try to justify collective punishment. A country never finds peace with bodies buried under it. I guess some Americans just don't remember there's a slave graveyard under the World Trade Center. Stop the criticism of Iranian nuclear fission until mutual nuclear disarmament's the mission. This ain't about religion, Muslim, Jew or Christian. It's about people making money off of that division.
Sin que medien armamentos, digo, siempre es buen momento para iniciar. Entendimiento es demasiado el desencuentro, siento que el respeto debe ser boleto al parlamento. Es el respeto el primer paso, si no lo que sigue es cuento. Es un complejo asunto, ¿cuánto tiempo? Son cientos de años. El premio al mayor daño para los de menor tamaño. Me empeño en no estar de acuerdo con ninguna posición que implique tal o más cual versión de discriminación, brother. Violencia, intolerancia en cualquier forma de expresión, más allá de cualquier religión, visión de obsesión. Boycott, boycott, boycott. Hay que hacer no solamente hablar, boycott Israel.
I am recognizing that the voices in my head are urging me to be myself and never follow when I'm led. So with that said, it's insurgency as we confirm some things. I am anti-Zionist and any fundamentalist. The devil's in the specifics, mixing with your favorite dish. You can beef with Israel and I'll be anti-Semitic. Don't buy beef from Israel cause you paying to kill them kids. So if you're rocking this shit, go ahead do the Gaza Strip. My heart race when I hit our park date from off the lids. We have lived in Mr. Olympic scene, free Mandela pickets in this image being repeatedly to street favela children, even freed from prison cause of global criticism of this horrible system boycotted by the citizens.
Alle med samvittighet, boycott Israel.
Hay que hacer no solamente hablar, boycott Israel.
Il n'y a qu'un pas d'hypocrisie à la diplomatie. Rester là assis devant la situation raciste, c'est pas l'image que j'ai d'un homme droit. L'immunité qu'Israël s'octroie me choque, moi regarde la pauvreté d'un peuple, comment relativiser? C'est le pouvoir qu'il faut briser, je viens viser sans stigmatiser. Je suis pas venu pactiser comme l'ONU ni attiser la haine, mais l'inégalité que la mauvaise foi entraîne a décuplé ma peine. C'est aux instances dirigeantes que je m'adresse car on agresse. Au prix d'erreurs passées, c'est tout un peuple que l'on oppresse. À tous les innocents de tous les camps que cette lutte emporte. L'addition est plus sale et que la mer morte, faut qu'on en sorte.
Granater regner over Gazas tak, treffer sykehus, treffer barnehagebarn, treffer sovesal. Det klart det snakk om en apartheidstat. De bygger opp en mur mellom seg og de som ikke skal ha borgerskap. For hvis du kaller det for pro-Palestin, så plutselig gjelder ikke regler. Du kan tro at det gir en helt makaber anklang til ordet blodappelsin. Om den dyrket i stjålet jord og gror fra et liv. Ikke i mitt navn, ikke for mine penger. Det holder slettes ikke å sitte rundt og grine lenger. Så vi må ramme fundamentet, vise Israel, for de driter helt i resolusjoner likevel. Bare en liten del av et mye større bilde. Som når vi boykotta selv da jeg var mye mindre. Ansvaret ligger hos oss alle, så vi vil ha med alle med samvittighet. Boykott Israel.
Palestine still remains illegally occupied. Its people live in inhuman conditions in virtual Bantustans, where they are subjected to collective punishments, 24-hour curfews, where they are humiliated and brutalized on a daily basis. They never know when their homes will be demolished, when their children will be shot, when their precious trees will be cut, when their roads will be closed, when they will be allowed to walk down to the market to buy food and medicine, and when they will not. They live with no semblance of dignity, with not much hope in sight. They have no control over their lands, their security, their movement, their communication, their water supply.
And again, yes?
Dr. Gilbert, how many cases are you seeing every day? How many are coming through the door of your hospital?
Well, make no mistake, this hospital behind me, Shifa Hospital, it's not run by Dr. Gilbert. It's run by a fantastic staff of Palestinian health workers of all types and professions, doctors, nurses, you know, lab technicians, paramedics, all sorts. And it could have been a state-of-the-art university hospital. The number of patients coming into Shifa, of course, is totally depending on the bombing. During the horror night of the Shia massacre, we received more than 400 patients. Of them, 47 were killed. But of course, for a hospital to accommodate 400 patients in a short time, it is a major undertaking.
Absolutely.
And I cannot really fully express my admiration
Absolutely.
for the Palestinian health workers.
Absolutely. And Dr. Gilbert, you know, our thanks and appreciation go out to you, but also to the wonderful staff out there who are doing a phenomenal job, who haven't been sleeping in days either. The question I've got for you, and everyone wants to, you know, has been asking, is what are the types of injuries that you and your team are seeing coming through your doors?
We see all sorts of war injuries. We see amputations. We see shrapnel wounds to the body. We see burns. We see, you know, all the consequences of an army using the most sophisticated, modern, dreadful weapons against a large civilian, basically totally unprotected population. Remember, the Palestinian people in Gaza, they have no shelters. They have no early warning systems. They have no, you know, operative civil defense. They are naked, and they can fly nowhere because they are incarcerated in this little piece of land by the same occupant who is bombing them. So this is really such a merciless and cowardice way of waging a warfare.
So,
at least the Palestinian fighters are fighting against tanks,
yeah,
the Israeli tanks. But the Israelis are fighting against children and women. And
Dr.
that
Gilbert,
is despicable, I think.
Dr. Gilbert, we understand that there is a critical lack of medical supplies at your hospital, but the other hospitals in the area. At what levels are these supplies? Can you give us an insight into what you currently don't have and how that is impacting the treatment of patients, of casualties?
The lack of equipment, the lack of modern medical equipment, disposable supplies of all types is a result of 7 years of total siege from the Israeli government. The siege of Gaza is the fundamental problem for all the hospitals. And the siege of Gaza is a collective punishment. Now there is another martyr coming. What we're lacking is sort of paramount. We're lacking everything from trolleys to instruments, to surgical instruments, to modern X-ray, to modern monitoring equipment, to drugs. We cannot do epidurals for the pregnant women who are going to deliver. We cannot do epidurals for postoperative pain because we don't have the needles, we don't have the local anesthetics. But make no mistake, the Palestinian health workers in Gaza and of course in Shifa, they don't follow any other ethical standards than in my hospital in Norway. So they improvise, they find solutions. But we must now demand from the international community that the hospitals and the civilians in Gaza are protected by the ICRC and the United Nations. I urge Ban Ki-moon, when he's coming here, to promise and to safeguard that all the hospitals and all the ambulances in Gaza are protected by international presence, observers, and that there are actually representatives for the international communities at the hospital gate every night, 7/24, because the Israelis are up to bombing more hospitals, as they did today when they bombed Al-Aqsa Hospital and killed 5 patients. This is unbearable.
Dr. Gilbert, I'm sure everyone around the world shares those sentiments. And it's great that you're there to see this for yourself and to be able to report back to the world. It is making a big difference, believe you me. Dr. Gilbert, just going back, I mean, tonight we're trying to raise as much funds as we can to help you, help the other hospitals to get the essential medical equipment, supplies there. Can you tell us how long do you think the current supply levels will last?
It was a little bit hard to hear the full question, but I understand you asked me about how long we can sustain this situation.
Correct.
And the answer is the Palestinian sumud is endless. The Palestinian bravery and courage, as I see it every day, is unyielding. I don't think the Palestinian people are going to give in to an occupant and a brutal besieger that shows no mercy whatsoever, that shows no human feelings for their children and their people. I don't meet revenge feelings among the Palestinians. I meet people who say, let us have peace. We don't want to kill anybody. Let us have peace. We are being attacked. We are being killed. We have the right to defend ourselves, but we want peace. And to get peace, there must be a willingness from Israel to talk to the Palestinians without preconditions. As Mandibo said, Nelson Mandela, if you want peace, you have to talk to your enemies. From my little chair here in Gaza, I like to say that I urge the world leaders and your David Cameron to immediately make it possible to stop the bombing of Gaza, to lift the siege of Gaza, and to grant security, human security, and human rights for all Palestinians in Gaza. Gaza is bleeding. The rivers are flowing in the streets of Gaza with Palestinian blood. Stop the bombing, lift the siege, stop the murders, and, dear friends, pray for Gaza. We need that.
Dr. Mads, we have another question.
The Joy Behar Show, every night, 10 Eastern, on HLN.
The downside of being outspoken is sometimes you get in trouble. I can relate because I've gotten into trouble over my career also.
Congratulations.
Yes, and thank you. I mean, when you have a big mouth, you're going to get in trouble. And my mother used to say, good luck with your mouth.
But that's called freedom.
It's called freedom of speech, and I use it every day.
And you pay the price.
You pay the price. Okay, and you did pay the price. Okay, so like those Israel remarks that you made, and I want people to see what it is we're talking about. So let's watch.
Any comments on Israel? We're asking everybody today. Any comments
on Israel? Tell them to get the hell out of Palestine.
Ooh. Any better comments than that?
Helen is one. Remember, these people are occupied, and it's their land. It's not German, it's not Poland.
So where should they go? What should they do?
They go home.
Where's the home?
Poland.
So the Jews,
Germany.
You think Jews go back to Poland and Germany?
And America and everywhere else.
So when you look at that, when I watched that and when I saw it in the first place, I thought to myself that is an insensitive remark, that Poland and Germany are the exact places that the Jews were put into concentration camps, and that at the very, very least...
We fought World War II. I had two brothers, many relatives.
Right.
There hasn't been the persecution since World War II. You don't take other people's land.
But but you see the insensitivity of the remark that.
No, I didn't realize it would ring that many bells because they've been free ever since.
I know, but Germany and Poland, you didn't pick, Alaska. You picked Germany and Poland.
I should have said Russia too.
Well, Russia had its share of anti-Semitic pogroms also, but...
They also had 25 million who died in World War II.
That's true. But I'm trying to...
More than that.
Yeah, so, I mean, Germany, Poland, Dachau, Auschwitz, we're talking about...
And the United States.
Mm-hmm. And the United States what?
I said he said, where should they go? Mm-hmm. I mean, they didn't have to go anywhere, really, because they weren't being persecuted anymore, but they were taking other people's land.
You're talking about the Israelis?
Of course.
Uh-huh. Do you consider yourself anti-Semitic?
Hell no.
You do not?
I'm a Semite.
You're a Semite yourself?
Of Arab background.
Oh, I know, you're Lebanese background, right? But you're not Jewish.
Well, what does that mean?
Well, no, you say I'm just trying to clarify.
They're not Semites. I mean, most of them are from Europe.
Mm-hmm. The Jews?
Yes.
Well... Okay, but I'm trying to see, if you had a chance to redo the comment, what would you say now?
Why do they have to go anywhere? They're not being persecuted anywhere.
The Israelis?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Why do they have to go anywhere?
The Jews.
Well, the question was, any comments on Israel? That's what the question was. And you said, tell them to get the hell out of Palestine.
Right.
And then the rabbi who was interviewing you said, any better comments? And you say, remember, these people are occupied and it's their land, not Germany's, not Poland. So where should they go, he said. What should they do? And you said,
why
go
do they
home.
have to go anywhere? They aren't being persecuted. They don't have the right to take other people's land. Under international law, occupied land should not be annexed.
But then maybe you should have said, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but maybe you should have said, well, the Israelis should stay in Israel, but you said they should go back to Poland and Germany. That's what got you in trouble, Helen.
He said, where should they go?
Yeah.
Well, maybe it did get me in trouble. Everything is distorted, but I don't care, you know.
You don't care at this point?
No, at hell, no.
Okay. All right. Well, you got a lot of criticism for it. How did you deal with all of that criticism?
We have organized lobbyists in favor of Israel. You can't open your mouth. I can call the President of the United States anything in the book, but if you say one thing about Israel and you're off limits.
Well, that's what happened to you. I mean, the Society of Professional Journalists retired the Helen Thomas Lifetime Achievement Award. They said no individual worthy of such honor should have to face this controversy. No honoree should have to decide if the possible backlash is worth being recognized for his or her contribution to journalism. Are you offended by that?
By what?
The fact that they will not give this award to anybody in your name?
Well, I mean, that's their decision, but I think it's stupid. Has nothing to do with my views about Israel. My achievements in journalism are a little separate.
So you have no regrets about what you said, even though
I have regrets that everybody's misinterpreted it and distorted it. And you have the Ari Fleischer and Abe Foxman distorting everything. So I certainly knew that, and I should have kept my mouth shut, probably.
But you still don't feel that it was insensitive in any way?
No.
No.
I'm sensitive about the Palestinians being pushed around, knocked on the door at 3 o'clock in the morning. Get out of this house in 24 hours. 3 generations in refugee camps.
Okay.
Pushed from their homes.
I see. But you see the other side of it. The other side of it is that the Jews are sensitive because of the history that they have in the 20th century.
Everybody's sensitive when they're being pushed out of their homes.
Well, but the 20th century was particularly cruel to the Jewish population.
Yes, it was.
In Europe, in Germany,
my family went through World War II. We were very sensitive. All of us were there. Every American was there.
But did your family go to a concentration camp?
No.
No. Well, that's the difference. That's the point.
The difference is that count how many thousands of Palestinians are in jail now, thrown from their homes. 1 million refugees. Is that sensitive?
Everybody's got sensitivity points here.
Right, you're right.
But Israel has a PhD in deception, because it's Dajjal at the back of this, the mastermind. And Israel would not want to wage a big war and appear to the world naked, clearly, as an aggressor. No, that's not deception. Israel has to wage her big war and make it appear as though she was only defending herself. The only Muslim I know of who has had the capacity to be able to penetrate the deception that has been going on all these years, the only one I know of, was a man who never went to Al-Azhar University. Now, he wasn't a sheikh. His name was Malcolm X. He's the only man I know of who had that eyes wish to see and could clearly recognize the strategy and the deception. Read Malcolm X. How is Israel going to launch this big war and yet get away from being perceived by the whole of humanity as the aggressor, blatant aggression? You have to come with a good strategy. The strategy is this. Ariel Sharon goes into Masjid al-Aqsa with 1,000 Israeli military with him, with their shoes on, with the full knowledge that this calculated act of extreme provocation must have a response, a fiery response. And as the flames of the new intifada emerge, you must keep it burning by committing upon the Palestinian people more and more atrocities that drive them into a greater and greater rage. This is planning, this is strategy, this is not happening by accident. As Israel unleashes this barbaric oppression upon the Palestinian people, you must have a television station which you plant amongst them, which will cover this, that your Egyptian television would not cover, and your Jordanian government would not allow on Jordanian television, so you create something called Al Jazeera. And the Arab masses believe Al Jazeera is their station. This is the only place in the world we can get authentic information, Al Jazeera. So Al Jazeera is now used to portray all the atrocities. And so around the Arab world, the masses only have to tune into Al Jazeera and they know what's happening. And so the Arab masses become more and more angry. More impending scenario in which, like the domino effect, governments around the world of Islam, they will claim, are now going to fall. And the world of Islam is rising up now. And one-eyed Muslims, of course, are going to believe it. The world of Islam is now going to rise up and all these governments are going to be swept away. And authentic governments representing the Muslim masses will now emerge. And therefore the Jews are going to have their throats cut. This is going to be the most dangerous moment in the entire life of the world of Jews. The media will portray it. If we don't do something, we will all be slaughtered by these Muslim fanatics. Yeah? I tell you, this will be drama worthy of Hollywood when it comes. Huh? They must be hating me now for revealing their secrets. It is in this scenario that Israel will say, we have to do something. If we just sit here and do nothing, the state of Israel will be destroyed and the Jews will all be slaughtered. What can we do? They call it a preemptive strike. A preemptive strike. But it won't be a preemptive strike. It will be the most dazzling display of the magnificent application of state-of-the-art military technology that will leave even Uncle Sam in the backyard. A war like Uncle Sam has never seen and could never wage. That is what Israel is going to wage. Do they have the technology? I believe they have technology that even Uncle Sam doesn't have. It will be a lightning strike. Israel has to put on this magnificent display of military power and state-of-the-art technology beyond anything else that the world has ever known, in order for Israel to impress upon mankind the validity of its credentials that is now going to become the new ruling state in the world. Before Fahad could even blink, the Israelis have taken over the Saudi oil fields. and the Iraqi and the Kuwaiti oil fields. The United States, of course, will make some noise, and Britain will make some noise, but will they send troops? No, of course not.
Welcome to the Real News Network. I'm Jessica Devereaux in Baltimore. And welcome to this edition of the Ratner Report. Now joining us is Michael Ratner. He is the President Emeritus for the Center for Constitutional Rights. Thank you for joining us, Michael.
It's always good to be with you, Jessica, and the Real News.
So, Michael, what are you working on this week?
Well, you know, the news is really, for me, particularly heartbreaking. It's about Gaza, Israel's assault on Gaza. And today I want to talk about Israel, but particularly its criminality, its war crimes, genocide, crimes against humanity, and apartheid. Of course, it's a criminality that could not be carried out by Israel without the weapons and support of the United States. As I said, we're living through what I consider to be a heartbreaking and criminal Israeli assault on Gaza. There's 1.8 million people locked in an outdoor prison, deprived for years of the necessities of life, and now murdered and maimed by bombs and a military assault from Israel. Gaza's not giving up in the face of the assault, despite the incredible damage. And now they're being joined by Palestinians in the occupied territories of the West Bank. In addition, there are masses of people throughout the world engaging in militant protests. And we're seeing a change, but of course at a very high cost to the Palestinians. The numbers killed are remarkable and numbing, and who they are that are being killed. The Palestine Committee on Human Rights, which the Center for Constitutional Rights works closely with, it's headed by a man, Palestinian named Raji Sourani. They put out daily reports. As we speak today, on the 26th of July, there's been 808 people killed in Gaza. Astonishing, 666 of those are civilians, 81.5%. 194 are children, 24%, over 4,000 wounded, mostly civilians. What we're seeing by Israel is the targeting of houses, schools, hospitals, and even a UN shelter housing refugees. The war crimes are open and notorious. They're violations of the Geneva Conventions, and many, including Raji Sourani, are giving incredible testimony about these violations of the Geneva Conventions. Raji calls it what it is, collective punishment meant to spread terror in Gaza. That is why Navi Pillay, UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, says there's a strong possibility that Israel has committed war crimes, and she referred the matter to the Human Rights Council. These are all crimes of the current Israeli onslaught. But what I want to emphasize today is these killings are part of a broader set of inhuman acts by Israel constituting international crimes carried out by Israel over many years, going back to at least 1947 and 1948. They include crimes that aren't talked about that much in the media or the press, the crimes of genocide, crimes against humanity, and apartheid. These crimes can be prosecuted in the International Criminal Court and are defined there. They include what the well-known Israeli writer Ilan Pappé called incremental genocide. Pappé says he wants to place the barbarity of what Israel is doing in its proper context. I'm a lawyer. I've looked at genocide. Genocide has two elements. One element is the mental element, the intent to destroy in whole or in part a national or ethnical or racial or religious group. Palestinians are clearly a national and ethnical group, and you don't need to kill them all. You just need to have the mental mental intent to kill part of them. For example, it would be enough to have the mental intent to kill the leadership of the Palestinians or to kill people in one region. No doubt about that. Genocide also requires that there be acts of genocide, killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm, or inflicting conditions of life calculated to bring about the physical destruction in whole or part of the people you're trying to destroy. There's no doubt again here. This is incremental genocide, as Ilan Papai says. It's been going on for a long time. It's the killings, the incredibly awful conditions of life, the expulsions that have gone on from Lydda in 1947 and 48, when 700 or more villages in Palestine were destroyed, and the expulsions that continued from that time until today. It's correct and important to label it for what it is. A second important international crime is the crime against humanity. No doubt here at all. A crime against humanity is, quote, part of a widespread or systematic attack directed against any civilian population. It's carried out by means of murder, forcible transfers, torture, rape, and the crime of apartheid. Again, the evidence here from 1947 on, in what is now Israel, the occupied territories, the West Bank, today Gaza, is clear that crimes against humanity have been and are currently being committed by Israel. Which brings me to the third international crime, the crime of apartheid. No doubt about apartheid. It's defined as inhuman acts committed to maintain the domination by one racial group over another. The inhuman acts include murder, bodily injury, mental injury, infringement of freedom or dignity, and this, importantly, legislative measures preventing participation in the political or social or economic life of the country. Again, for any of us who know even the rudiments of the history of the Israeli oppression of the Palestinians, they are, have been, and are currently committing the crime of apartheid. I stress these international crimes because it is important to put what Israel does with the support of the US in its proper context. It's not just about this current assault on Gaza, but an assault that has continued for almost 70 years. Yes, we must stop this assault, but it will not be sufficient. Yes, we must hold Israel and its leaders accountable in courts throughout this world. But that will still not be sufficient. In the end, we must end the occupation and Palestine must be free.
All right, Michael Ratner, thank you so much for that report.
And thanking you again for having me on The Real News.
And thank you for joining us on The Real News Network.
All right, could you tell me why you're here today protesting AIPAC?
Well, with the help of the Almighty, He should bestow upon me His truth, His wisdom, that I may convey it to the world who's going to see your show. With God's help, AIPAC is a representative of Zionism in the state of Israel. And they use our symbols. They call it the Jewish state. They use the Star of David. And basically, they've hijacked our identity, the Jewish identity, to perpetrate a terrible rebellion against God, a crime. The concept of creating a land, a homeland, a so-called Jewish homeland, is totally contradictory to what the Torah tells a Jew to do. We are forbidden to create a homeland. Since the destruction of the temple 2,000 years ago, we were expressly told by God, by King Solomon in a prophecy, we are not to create 1 inch of Jewish sovereignty. That is the concept of exile. What we do hope and pray for is one day we believe God will bring peace to the world, will reveal His glory, all humanity will join together, then we will go up and God will create a temple. It'll be the will of all humanity. Till that day comes, we have never for 2,000 years attempted to create a Jewish homeland. Till Zionism came, a mere 100-odd years ago, Theodor Herzl, Ben-Gurion, Weizmann, and Netanyahu, the same, all one ilk, non-religious people who are rebelling against God, and they want to transform Judaism, the religion, subservience to God, into a base materialism. We're a proud nation. We're going to have a piece of land, an Olympic team. We're going to have a strong army at whatever cost. How many human lives have to die for that? Judaism says that you're not allowed to steal, you're not allowed to kill. This Zionist dream is built by sacrificing untold amount of lives on the altar of Zionism to create their state. And they ignore all of this. Why? Because they are truly not subservient to God, and they have their goal, what they're trying to accomplish, and whatever crosses its path has to go. So we as Jewish people want the world to know Judaism in its essence is a total diametric opposite of Zionism. It cannot and will never accept the existence of the state of Israel in any manner. It will not accept it whether it even 1 inch of a state, whether it affects another people. In other words, if it would have been in an uninhabited land or the Palestinian people will give it to us, Jews will never accept it because we are not to have a state. Secondly, we are not to kill or steal, so it just gets compounded that Zionism in the state of Israel is a criminal existence, and we do not accept it. Therefore, if you will go to any part of the world, wherever there's a very religious Jewish community, you will find invariably the more religious, the more anti-Zionist. If you go to Brooklyn, you'll go to Williamsburg, right across from Manhattan, the most religious Jewish community, they're all anti-Zionists. There's not one Israeli flag. If you go to Jerusalem, Mea Shearim, the more the religious, they're anti-Zionist. If you go to England, in Stamford Hills, you'll find this is a fact because it simply cannot coexist. This Zionism cannot coexist with being a truly religious Jew or one who serves God, because it is so clear to us that we are a religion and not a nationalism. And it is clear to us that we are forbidden to kill. There were 3 oaths given to us by the destruction of the temple, and it's a prophecy of King Solomon. 1, that we are forbidden to rebel against any nation. We have to be loyal citizens in every country we reside in. Secondly, we are not to attempt to return en masse in large numbers to the Holy Land. That's already 2,000 years. Till the day, as I say, ultimately when God will make a metaphysical change, reveal His glory, where all humanity will serve Him in harmony. That will happen through God without any human intervention. It will be the will of all people. But to go and take a gun against the people and demand that the land be given to us, this is clearly not what Jews yearn and pray for, and it is forbidden for us. And thirdly, we're not to make any attempt to end exile. So these 3 oaths of God, add with the fact that Zionism in its essence has nothing to do with religion, causes us as a religious people to stand up and shout out to the world that we have been abused, we have been falsely portrayed, the Jewish people's identity has been stolen and smeared in the ground, and we cry for the suffering of the Palestinian people that is being done in our name. We hurt, we are frustrated and humiliated because these people, the Palestinian people, lived together with us for hundreds and hundreds of years. They served as our best friends. They provided a safe haven, Muslim and Arab countries, for hundreds of years by the Crusades, by the Inquisition. The people of the Arab and Muslim land were always gracious hosts for the Jews. There were some bumps in the road, but there was never this Holocaust over there. And Jews never had a human rights group or a United Nations protection. Yet we flourished in these lands. And God says we should show our gratitude for good done to us. And yet, these people, these countries are being vilified by the Zionists with the claim that they are anti-Semites, that they hate the Jews. It could be nothing more despicable than that. It's just something that we can't swallow that, and it hurts us so much. The death of these people, and compounded because it's being done in our name. So we pray to God to bring a speedy and total dismantlement of this criminal existence called the State of Israel. It will happen because the Torah says if you rebel against God, it will not be successful. And you see that it's an endless river of bloodshed since its beginning. It will end. We only pray to God that it should happen soon without any more suffering. Whether it is Palestinian, Arab, Jew, it should just stop soon. It will, we hope, and we pray. Then we will be able to embrace our neighbors and be able to repay the good done to us for these hundreds of years and give them back their dignity and show our love and simply repay what...
Peace. I'm Rami Salam. This is a message to the Palestinians, and especially our brothers and sisters in Gaza. Our thoughts and our prayers are with you. We love you. Please stay strong. Please keep resisting. To the people in Israel, to the Israeli government, to all those that are aiding and assisting the Israeli government in their war crimes and the genocide they are committing, in the Holocaust they are committing against the people of Palestine. Please stop. You know that this is not right. Much love to you all.